In this video, we are going to talk about variables. All right. So variables is a very central part of any programming language. A variable, like if you have seen in maths, a variable is actually a named number which can take any value. So if you have a variable called x, it can be 10, it can be 15, it can be anything. It's just a name for a number, but that number can be anything. In any programming language, you have, like most of the major programming languages, you have variables of different types. You have to specify in there are different types of languages. There are typed languages and there are untyped languages. In typed languages, you have to specify the type of the variable. Why, if you like, you may ask, why do you need to specify the type of a variable? Because that's how compilation actually works. When the code is actually converted into something that runs on the silicon chip, it needs to know how much memory to allocate to a particular variable, and for that it needs to know what type of variable it is. More importantly, it also prevents you from making a lot of mistakes. Like if you specify an integer variable, then you will have to use it only as an integer. If you, by mistake, if you try to use it as some other type, like a game object, okay, then your typed language code will catch that problem, whereas untyped language will not. All right. So you heard me say that integer variable is used as a game object variable. So it's a little confusing, right? If you might be thinking till now that a variable only represents a number. No, actually it's not the case. A variable is any type of object. So in Unity, you have seen there are game objects. All right. There are components. Even the components can be represented by variables. All right. So a component variable of, say, rigid body type can take a rigid body of uh, it can take multiple different types, multiple different rigid bodies. So at one point of time, our game has the variable current, like the cube object's rigid body attached, assigned to that. At another given time, I may have some other object, like say a capsule. The rigid body of the capsule may be held in that rigid body variable. All right. So a variable is anything which can take. It's a placeholder for an object. All right, a placeholder for an object. And you can have multiple types of objects. These are not the only type of objects. Even a component is an object in a way in Unity. All right. So yeah, coming back to the purpose of this video, what we are going to do in this video is we are going to understand different types of variables. So okay, let me show you something. So let me create an integer variable. Now you know that integer variable can hold an integer value. All right. Now let me set that value to 5. This is called setting the value. This is called the assignment operator. All right. And let me increment it every time. Let me increase it in every frame. Okay. Now let me check if this variable ever becomes more than 10, like last time. Like, okay. So let me say debug.log my variable is now more than 10. Alright, so after 10 updates it should logically come here, correct? Let's see if that happens. So after a few seconds, or rather less than a second, we should see this particular string variable, this particular string printed to the console. Let's see if that happens. Ready, steady, and go. Compilation is happening at the bottom right, if you can see. Alright, waiting. 1, 2, 3, no. So it was supposed to happen after exactly 10 frames, which should definitely take less than a second. Now more than 4-5 seconds have passed and it has not come. So that code is definitely not getting executed. Now try to guess what might have happened. Take a few seconds, pause the video and take a guess why this variable never reached beyond 10. Because we are incrementing it every time. But if you notice that we are also setting it to 5 every time, congratulations, you found the error. Alright. So a problem with this code is that this variable is, every time it is set to 5, and every local variable we need to set it to something the moment we declare it. This is called a local variable. Now how do I fix this error? I move it outside this update function out here. This is the update function, and put it inside the class. So in putting it in the class makes it something called a member variable. What? Let's repeat this 3-4 times. This is now a member variable. And what was this earlier? That was a local variable. What is this now? This is now a member variable, and earlier it was something called a local variable. Local variable inside the function, member variable inside the class, outside all functions. Now you'll ask me, what should it always be only at the top? Not necessarily. It can be anywhere outside all the functions, but putting it at the top makes it easier for the code to be read. When you read the code, you see all the variables in one place. Otherwise, even if I do this, even between start and update, it still works. Alright, so let's follow good coding styles and declare it. This is called a variable declaration. Variable declaration. Okay, be prepared for a quiz that is going to come up on these terms. This is called a variable declaration. This is called an assignment. This is called a local variable, and this is a member variable declaration. Alright, let's see if our code now works. It should, because it is exactly the same as before. Yeah, variable is more than 10. Alright, next step is that we will see what is the difference between my variable in terms of accessing from functions. So let me just uncomment this code and comment this part. Now I will check if my variable is it's at 5, right? So let me check if I can check if my variable is equal to 5. It should be, because the first value is 5, right? Oh, I'm seeing some error. My variable does not exist in the current context. Okay, so interesting. So when I declare a variable inside a function, it is local. Its name says it all. It is local. Local to which place? Local only to update. You cannot see this function. Even in update, you cannot access it before it is declared. Okay, like in a movie, suppose a function is like a movie. You cannot have anything about a character before it is introduced. The character is first introduced, right? He comes in and there is an introduction scene, like a hero is first introduced, and before that, if you put him in the story like he's bringing tea for somebody, does not make sense. So this is like the introduction of the variable. Before the introduction of the variable, you cannot use it. Not only that, a local variable can only be used inside the function after it is declared, whereas a member variable can be declared in any method. Alright, so that is a key difference between a member variable and a local variable. Alright, so that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.